Vincent Ashford stood by the expansive windows of his penthouse suite, watching the city lights flicker like distant stars below. The aged whiskey in his crystal glass reflected the warm glow of the fireplace behind him. At 38, he had everything money could buy: a thriving investment firm, properties across 3 continents, and a lifestyle most people only dreamed about. Wait. Like many nights before, he felt the familiar weight of emptiness settling in his chest, a feeling that no amount of success could ever seem to fill. The familiar sound of laughter echoed from the living room. His 3 closest friends from business school were here for their weekly ritual. Christopher Hayes, a real estate mogul with more ego than empathy, was sprawled across the Italian leather sofa. Next to him sat Richard Palmer, who had inherited his father's pharmaceutical empire and never let anyone forget it. And then there was Nathan Cross, owner of a luxury hotel chain, who treated every conversation like a business negotiation. These were the men he called his friends. "This merger is going to triple my portfolio by next quarter," Christopher boasted, gesturing wildly with his glass. "The coastal development alone will change the entire market landscape." Vincent nodded absently, his mind drifting far away from the talk of acquisitions and market shares. These gatherings had become predictable performances where each man tried to outdo the others with tales of financial conquest. He couldn't remember the last time success felt like an actual achievement. Now it just felt like another item to check off an endless, unfulfilling list. When did the thrill of the win turn into just another Tuesday? The heavy oak door opened softly, and a woman named Sophie Bennett entered. Carrying a silver tray with fresh refreshments, she moved through the room with a quiet, efficient grace, her presence somehow commanding attention without ever demanding it. Her chestnut hair was gathered in a simple twist, and her modest uniform spoke of professionalism, not servitude. But what truly struck Vincent, and always had, was the calm intelligence in her eyes. There was a depth there that suggested a world of experience far beyond her current position. "Thank you, Sophie," Vincent said, his voice carrying more warmth than he typically showed his staff. She acknowledged him with a slight nod and began replacing the empty glasses with fresh ones. Her movements were precise, almost artistic in their economy. "Hold on," Richard interrupted, his voice dripping with condescension as he eyed Sophie. "Vincent, is this the maid you mentioned? The one who completely reorganized your art collection last month?" Vincent felt a flush of heat rise to his face. He had, in fact, complained to his friends about Sophie taking the initiative with his art pieces, moving them around to create better visual harmony throughout the penthouse. What he hadn't mentioned was that her arrangements were objectively superior. She had shown an understanding of composition and aesthetic balance that had genuinely impressed him, even though his pride wouldn't let him admit it. Before Vincent could answer, Sophie spoke, her voice even and clear. "That was my doing, sir," she said, meeting Richard's gaze without a hint of fear. "The previous arrangement did not do justice to the pieces. Each work deserves proper lighting and complementary spacing. I hope my actions were not too presumptuous." Christopher let out a sharp, mocking laugh. Listen to her speak. Proper lighting and complementary spacing. "Where did you find this one, Vincent?" "She talks like she belongs in an art gallery instead of cleaning one." Sophie's calm didn't waver. "I do appreciate art, sir," she said politely. "Mr. Ashford's collection includes some remarkable pieces. The Monet in the East Hallway, for instance, is a stunning example of his Water Lily series. The brushwork suggests it was created during his time at Giverny." The room fell silent. Vincent stared at Sophie with new eyes. He had purchased that painting at an auction, attracted by the prestigious name, but he'd never studied it closely enough to know such details. Yet his maid, the woman he paid to maintain his home, had not only noticed but understood its significance on a level he couldn't. Nathan leaned forward, his expression a mixture of amusement and disdain. Well, an educated cleaning lady. How refreshing. "Tell me, do you have opinions about the economy as well? Perhaps some investment advice for us poor billionaires?" The insult hung in the air, thick and ugly. "I would not presume to advise you, sir," Sophie answered, her composure rock solid. "Though I do read the financial sections of several newspapers each morning. Understanding the world beyond these walls seems important, regardless of one's position in it." With that, she gave a slight bow and quietly exited the room, leaving a trail of stunned silence in her wake. After she left, Christopher burst into laughter. "Did you see that?" She actually thinks she belongs in our world. The audacity is almost admirable. She was simply being polite. Vincent found himself defending her, though he couldn't quite explain why this sudden loyalty had surfaced. Sophie has always been professional and respectful. Professional, Richard repeated, his tone dripping with mockery. Is that what we're calling it now? Vincent, your annual charity gala is in 3 weeks? You know, that event where everyone who matters in this city gathers? Every socialite, every business leader, every person of actual importance. What about it? Vincent asked, a feeling of dread mixing with curiosity. He sensed where this was going. Christopher's eyes glinted with mischief. I'll wager $50,000 that you lack the courage to invite your educated maid as your personal guest. Not as staff, mind you, but as an actual attendee. On your arm. The other 2 men immediately perked up, their interest ignited by the prospect of entertainment at Vincent's expense. Make it interesting, Nathan added with a shark-like grin. 50,000 more, says she'll refuse, out of sheer terror of being so far out of her depth. Richard smirked, piling on. And I'll add another 100,000 that if by some miracle she accepts and actually shows up, she'll be completely overwhelmed within the first hour. She'll probably hide in the bathroom, or leave early, utterly mortified. Vincent felt that familiar rush of competition, the same drive that had propelled him throughout his career. These betting games had been a part of their friendship since university, though never before had they involved another person so directly, so cruelly. But something about this challenge stirred both his pride and his curiosity. Sophie had shown more genuine intelligence and grace in 5 minutes than his so-called friends displayed in an entire evening. The way she had stood her ground against their mockery, the knowledge she possessed, the dignity she maintained, it all intrigued him in a way he hadn't felt in years. He wanted to see them proven wrong. He needed to. 200,000 total, Vincent declared, meeting each man's gaze with cold determination. I will invite Sophie to the gala as my guest. She will accept the invitation. And she will conduct herself with more class and sophistication than half the people in attendance. They shook hands, sealing the wager with the gravity of men who treated money as the ultimate measure of commitment. The terms were set. Vincent had 3 weeks to extend the invitation, secure Sophie's acceptance, and ensure she attended the gala. If she impressed the neutral observers they would appoint, he would collect $200,000. If she declined, failed to appear, or seemed out of place, he would pay. After his friends departed, their boisterous laughter fading down the hallway, Vincent remained alone in his study. The city sprawled endlessly below him, a kingdom of lights he ruled but didn't feel a part of. The bet echoed in his mind, and for the first time, doubt crept in. What had he just done? Was he setting Sophie up for potential humiliation, simply to prove a point to his arrogant friends? Was he any better than them, using her as a pawn in their pathetic game? Yet another thought persisted, one he found harder to dismiss. Over the 3 years Sophie had worked in his home, he had noticed things about her that went far beyond professional competence. The way she sometimes paused before his bookshelves, her fingers tracing the spines of volumes on philosophy and history. The classical music she hummed while arranging flowers, melodies that spoke of formal training. The thoughtful way she cared for his grandmother's antiques, as if she understood their sentimental value beyond their price tag. Sophie Bennett was a mystery wrapped in quiet dignity, and Vincent realized with a startling clarity that he wanted to understand her story. He told himself this was all about winning the bet, about putting his friends in their place. But somewhere deep in his chest, near that hollow place where fulfillment should have lived, something else was stirring. It was a faint, unfamiliar feeling, but it was there. Something that felt almost like hope. Tomorrow, he would extend the invitation. And whatever happened next, he knew it would reveal truths, not just about her, but about himself as well. The game was on. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this. We'll see you in the next one. Vincent woke with an unusual knot of anxiety. Sunlight streamed across the marble floor. But the man who faced down million-dollar deals without a sweat was terrified of one simple question. He found his maid, Sophie, in the library, the morning light catching the auburn in her hair. He'd noticed her elegance before, a natural grace that had nothing to do with money. He cleared his throat, feeling like a nervous teenager. Sophie, might I have a word? He asked her to sit, an unusual request that made her hesitate. "You know my annual charity gala," he began. "I find myself in need of a companion, someone who understands art and culture." He finally said it. "I would like to invite you to attend as my guest." The silence stretched on forever. Sophie's face was a perfect mask. "May I ask what prompted this, Mr. Ashford?" she asked, her voice calm. Vincent had planned a lie, to talk about the bet he'd made with his friends, but the truth surprised even him. "Because you are the most genuinely interesting person I have encountered in years," he admitted. "My social circle mistakes wealth for wisdom. You possess more authentic knowledge than most of them." Sophie studied him, searching his face. Then a small smile. "I accept," she said simply. Vincent was stunned. "You're not concerned about the scrutiny?" he asked. Her smile grew. "Should I be?" "Mr. Ashford, I have attended formal events before." She stood, smoothing her uniform. "My resume contains my recent employment history. It does not contain my entire life story." She paused at the door. "The dress code is black tie formal, I believe. I will arrange for attire." "That won't be necessary," she replied to his offer of funds. "I have resources available. Thank you, Mr. Ashford. I look forward to the evening." His friends called immediately. "She actually said yes," Christopher boomed. "She has no idea what she's walking into," Richard added. "I'm raising the bet," Nathan said. 50,000 more says she doesn't make it through the receiving line. Vincent's anger flared. "This is not a spectator sport," he snapped. "Then you shouldn't have accepted the wager," Christopher replied coolly. Over the next 3 weeks, Vincent found himself watching Sophie, trying to uncover her secrets. He learned she'd studied piano for 12 years, spoke 3 languages, and had traveled extensively. How did a woman like this end up here? "We all contain multitudes, Mr. Ashford," she told him one day. "Our current circumstances rarely tell our complete story." As the gala approached, Vincent realized the bet no longer mattered. He just didn't want to see her get hurt. The night before, he texted her, offering a way out. Her reply came instantly. "I have not changed my mind. I keep my promises. Tomorrow will be memorable for both of us." Vincent stared at the message. Knew she was right. Sophie Bennett was full of surprises, and the biggest one was about to be revealed. Vincent spent the afternoon of the gala in a state of restless energy he hadn't experienced in years. His tailored tuxedo hung perfectly. His appearance was flawless, yet he felt like a man walking toward an unknown fate. I'd arranged for a car to collect Sophie from her apartment at 7, giving her time to arrive fashionably late. His phone buzzed constantly with messages from his friends, Christopher, Richard, and Nathan. They'd positioned themselves strategically throughout the venue, ready to observe and judge. The Grand Metropolitan Hotel ballroom was a vision of elegance. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across tables draped in ivory silk. String quartet played as guests arrived in their finest attire, air-kissing and networking with practiced ease. Vincent stood near the entrance, watching the door with barely concealed anxiety. 7 o'clock came and went, and 7:15. By 7:30, Christopher appeared at his elbow, smirking. "Having second thoughts about your mystery guest?" Perhaps she realized she was out of her league. "The evening is young," Vincent replied coolly, though doubt was creeping into his mind. At 7:45, a ripple of whispers spread through the ballroom. Vincent turned, and the glass he was holding nearly slipped from his fingers. Sophie Bennett stood at the top of the grand staircase, and she was absolutely breathtaking. She wore a gown of deep sapphire blue that seemed to capture and reflect light with every movement. Her hair was arranged in a sophisticated updo, showcasing the elegant line of her neck. Diamond earrings caught the light, simple but clearly genuine. But what struck Vincent most was the way she carried herself. Sophie descended the staircase with the confident grace of someone who belonged in ballrooms. The crowd parted as she approached. "Oh, who is she?" someone whispered. "I've never seen her before." Vincent met Sophie at the base of the stairs, aware that every eye was watching. Up close, she was even more stunning. "Good evening, Mr. Ashford," she said, her voice calm and assured. "Sophie," Vincent managed, finding his voice. "You look absolutely remarkable." "Thank you," she replied, accepting his offered arm. "I hope I haven't kept you waiting." As they moved into the ballroom, Vincent saw his friend staring. Christopher's smug expression had vanished, replaced by open astonishment. Richard looked like a man trying to solve an impossible equation. Nathan just stood with his mouth slightly open. What followed was a masterclass in social grace. Sophie moved through the crowd with ease and intelligence. When introduced to the mayor, she discussed recent urban development policies with impressive insight. She conversed with a renowned art collector about an upcoming auction, demonstrating deep knowledge. A group of society women, known for their cutting remarks, surrounded her with predatory interest. "Your dress is exquisite," one said. "Might I ask who designed it?" "A small atelier in Paris," Sophie replied smoothly. "I had it made during my last visit." "You travel to Paris often?" another asked skeptically. "Not as often as I once did," Sophie answered with a wistful smile. "The city holds many memories for me. I spent 2 years there in my 20s, studying at the Sorbonne." The women exchanged glances, their attitudes shifting. "What did you study?" one asked. "Comparative literature," Sophie said, with a focus on 19th-century European novels. As the evening progressed, Vincent saw Sophie in a new light. This was not a maid pretending. This was a woman returning to a world she knew intimately. During dinner, seated at the head table, Sophie engaged in a spirited discussion about international economic policy with a former ambassador. She debated philanthropic approaches with the head of a major foundation. She even charmed the notoriously difficult conductor of the city symphony by discussing the nuances of Brahms versus Beethoven. Vincent watched her in wonder. Her comfort in this environment wasn't an act. She belonged here. During a brief moment alone on the terrace, Christopher approached with Richard and Nathan. Their confidence had evaporated. "Where did you find her?" Christopher demanded. "That is not a maid." "Who is she really?" "Is exactly who I said she was," Vincent replied calmly. "Sophie Bennett. Never claimed to know her entire story." "This is impossible," Richard muttered. "The way she speaks, the knowledge she has, ... Double quotes. Nathan just shook his head. "We've been played. I knew she was extraordinary," Vincent said. "But I'm discovering just how extraordinary along with you." Just then, Sophie appeared at the terrace doors, a slight smile on her face. "Gentlemen, I believe you've been discussing me. Perhaps this is a good time for certain truths to be acknowledged." They moved to a private salon. Sophie stood before them with quiet dignity. "My full name is Sophia Catherine Bennett Hartley," she began. "5 years ago, I was engaged to Jonathan Hartley, heir to the Hartley Industries fortune. We moved in the highest circles of society, attended events exactly like this." The room was silent. 2 months before our wedding, Jonathan was killed in a car accident. His family blamed me. The legal battle that followed consumed everything I had. I lost not just the man I loved, but my entire social circle. When the status and money disappeared, so did they. I found myself alone, grieving, and nearly destitute. "So you became a maid?" Richard asked softly. I became someone who needed to survive," Sophie corrected gently. "Domestic work paid the bills. It gave me privacy to heal. Your home, Mr. Ashford, provided sanctuary." Vincent felt a wave of admiration and shame. Sophie had been living in exile in his own home, and he'd been too blind to see it. "The bet," he said suddenly. "Sophie, I need to tell you the truth about tonight." "I know about the wager," Sophie said quietly. "I've known since the beginning." "Sound carries in your study." Christopher flushed red. "You knew, and you came anyway?" Vincent asked. Sophie's smile was genuine now. "I came because you gave me an opportunity to return to a world I'd lost. I came because despite your friend's motives, your invitation was offered with respect. And perhaps," she said, turning to the 3 friends, "wanted to prove that you can judge a person's worth by their current circumstances." The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Vincent no longer saw Sophie as his maid or his guest. He saw the remarkable woman she had always been. They danced as the evening drew to a close, moving in perfect synchronization. "What happens now?" he asked softly. "That depends," Sophie replied, her eyes meeting his. "I am still the same person who cleans your home. The question is whether you can see beyond surfaces, Mr. Ashford." Vincent thought about his empty life and hollow friendships. "I have spent years accumulating wealth while becoming poorer in every way that matters," he said. "You have lost everything material and remained rich in character. I think you could teach me a great deal about what truly has value." In Sophie's smile, Vincent saw a possibility. The bet was settled that night. Vincent collected his winnings and immediately donated it all to charity. His friends, humbled, each contributed another 100,000. But the real transformation was just beginning. In the weeks that followed, Vincent and Sophie built something new. Not employer and employee, but two souls who had found in each other the possibility of redemption, understanding, and in time, love. The gala had been a test, proving that worth can't be measured in job titles or bank accounts. Sometimes, the most extraordinary people are hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with eyes clear enough to truly see them.